The new competitive season for League just kicked off, and you might have noticed recently that while for the most part the meta has been generally the same, the support role has thrown all of that out the window. Something is definitely wrong here when 3 of the first 4 supports picked in the LCS are Heimerdinger, Ashe, and Azir. Teams have been picking both the Jhin and Ashe bottom lane and simply deciding which one they want AD and which one they want support. And don't even get me started on Keiria's absolutely forbidden Caitlyn and Kalista support. Basically, something's clearly wrong with the way support meta is flowing in the game right now, and my job for you today is to break this down to find out why. So how did this shit show begin? What is the source of this absolutely whack champion dynamic in the bottom lane? Well, from my point of view, it all begins with one thing, and I would like to call it the Donger effect. Let's have a look at our good friend Beryl. Some of you might know Beryl from his little cameo at the World's 2022 finals last year, or from his interesting obsession over building his waifu army in Genshin. Either way, somehow, this man stumbled upon the forbidden technology that was the Dong and consistently drew out bans because of how it shifted the meta. TLDR, main pro play takeaways here for the average player like us is that Heimer support breaks a lot of bot lane matchups. His turrets are an excellent asset in getting free prio in every single matchup, especially at level 1. In pro play, when you're able to simply command priority whenever you feel like it, that is an absolutely huge advantage because this basically increases your playbook in the early stages of the game, always gives you the right agency and conditions for these plays to be in your favor, and then if you're at this level of play, you typically can use those advantages to snowball into further advantages, and that just usually ends up winning you the game in the end. Another important aspect of this strategy was that as a result of this aggression, this would end up generating the support player a huge gold advantage over the other support, especially in the case where there are relic shield support. We're talking consistent 200 to 300 gold advantages without even any kills involved here, and giving all of the associated stat boosts that come with your support item upgrades. Just getting that free harass here is what makes this gold difference possible. This tempo further feeds into the other pain points to this strategy, leading to a pick that effectively just generates an advantage for the team that picks it without really much room for counterplay, which is super illegal. This strategy was so unbelievably powerful that it ended up just forcing a lot of teams to lose a ban against DRX at the time because most teams just didn't really have an answer into it. It also just shifted the game state of the map to be really focused around this weird perma-prio Heimerdinger, with one team trying to prevent that from succeeding and the other trying to facilitate and counter that strategy. So Worlds ends, Beryl, the player we're talking about here, ends up winning the whole World Championship by the way, and it got a lot of teams thinking about what the hell to do with this strategy. We come back this season and teams have prepared a lot of the strategies and picks that we're seeing right now, all because of this one champion that managed to gravitate the entire bot lane meta. This led into a whole slew of picks that basically thrived off of a similar style of play. Good gold generating tools thanks to an abuse of the harass based support items and creating the situation in which teams could choke people out. A lot of these picks came up as a happy coincidence between finding the right champ that manages to counter Heimerdinger while also meeting these conditions. This is where we run into the other champs. AD carries will naturally fare well into Heimerdinger because in the early game, they have an easy and consistent form of damage output that can curb the Heimer turrets, auto attacks. Champions like Ashe have been very commonly picked for their fair auto attack ranges and abilities that can take out Heimer's turrets relatively easily. Turns out, teams have been liking this style a lot, and stylistically it behaves very similarly to how the Heimer does. You take Halo Blades for an instant 60 gold output in your trades, and actually giving you a decent amount of all-in potential, then you continue to snowball with an Umbro Glaive start, giving you great vision control and a way to facilitate even more gold generation in the process. In this manner, having AD carries can generate even more gold than a champ like Heimer due to access to this item. There's of course also some other tech picks that have been coming up like Jhin or Azir, and these champs just bring up a whole slew of new draft possibilities. Some teams will bust out new flex picks because of these newfound capabilities and what could be brought out in the bottom lane. Teams will often pick 2 AD carries in bottom lane in draft, and the AD carry player can simply choose which one he wants to play in order to suit the conditions of his comp best. This strategy has pretty much affected every component of pro play, which is both quite interesting but also very confusing. So one valid concern is, why don't people just punish this? There's no way that teams should be allowed to just pick 2 squishies. Can't you just engage and kill them? While a valid point, and one that I was thinking about myself, this game state has come about basically due to how the rest of the field of bot lane is looking right now as well. Ever since last year's durability patch, we've been seeing quite the trend towards a lot of range supports in the field at the moment. Nami, Lulu, Yuumi, Karma, Lux. Support in that way doesn't really have that much diversity right now. Since Engage is relatively weak in the field overall, survival of the fittest now becomes a game about who can win the war of attrition the best. The lane that comes out on top is the one that can command the plays on the rest of the map. Hence the new mentality that 2 ranged DPS champions in bottom lane is better than 1. This strategy isn't without its weaknesses though. If teams aren't successful basically ending the game right after getting a lead with these picks, then of course you're going to face the consequences. The gold generation from the harass-based support items pretty much ends after the 10-15 minute mark, and then you're stuck with a malnourished AD carry or other squishy champion instead of a real support champion, meaning that it's very hard for your comp to succeed in fights. There are some versions of these picks, like Ashe or Heimer, that can still have a decent amount of use, but for the most part, their advantage has been gassed out by that point. But this is not necessarily a new concept per se. Lane dominant pairings that we already see, like Caitlyn Lux or Lucian Nami, are basically this exact concept materialized. Teams are just confident in being able to take the leads that they are given with these lanes and really drive it home through objective advantages to negate the fall of components. If the enemy team gets to outscale, generally the mindset here is that the team that was piloting the early game champs simply failed to execute. Thanks to our brother Beryl who brought up this strategy in the first place, and due to a perfect storm of factors in the meta right now, we're essentially in the prime game state to allow this absolute mess of a meta to take over at the moment. While it's made for some really interesting strategies and ideas that I don't really think I would ever thought to see in my time playing this game, I really don't think it'll take long for this to get old, and Riot may have to step in once again to fix this game state. As always, hope this was insightful to you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay fresh.